Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Whew. All right. I feel like I'm looking at you guys sideways. Nevertheless, we're going to get this done. We're going to get started today. Good morning. My name is Erica Danielle, and it has been way too long since I have went live. I took a little hiatus, but I am back, and we are here to stay. So just a little bit about me before we get into today. Again, my name is Erica Danielle. And I wrote the book, Married to the Backslider. Many of you have it already. So many people have been asking for this book on audio. And I don't know what took me so long to get it done, but we're doing it today. We're going to do it a little different. I'm going to be reading the book to you. Hope it doesn't get too emotional. Some of you know the story, some of you don't. So for my new people, welcome. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. And I hope you enjoy. I'm going to go ahead and apologize in advance in case I get a little bit emotional. I'm hoping not to get too emotional today. But it's real life. So let's get into it. I hope it blesses you. I hope it helps you. This is going to be chapter 1, episode 1. And we're going to see how far we can get today. All right. Married to the Backslider by Erica Danielle is also available on Amazon. The prologue. Prologue. Half man, half amazing. My life seemed to be one big blur of fighting. Fighting for my rep, fighting for peace, fighting for the underdog, fighting to stay alive, and just fighting for my place in the world. It wasn't until I was 37 years old that I understood that I was already a winner. It took me all this time to realize that my condition is not my conclusion. When I was 9 years old, my parents moved down south to North Carolina from Harlem. I really don't know why, because we still lived on what was considered to be the rough side of town. I was reared by 2 loving parents. If you ask anyone, they will probably tell you I was spoiled. My mother and father were respectable in the city where they lived and held down jobs way into their 70s. My brother was 20 years my senior, so I basically was raised as an only child. I was the apple of my mother's eye. I really had no reason to choose the life I lived. My only excuse is that I grew up in an era where crack cocaine made its arrival on the scene. Pause. For you, those of you that don't know, this is written in a man's voice. Okay? This new epidemic had cats in my neighborhood driving foreign cars, profiling in gold chains, and designer clothes. Everybody wanted a piece of the action, including me. With the crack came violence. Everyone was fighting to get to the top. When I was 15, my best friend was shot and killed in my driveway right in my face. I was never the same. It came naturally, the violence. It was a product that everyone wanted. It practically sold itself. It didn't hurt that I was known in the hood. I had earned my stripes early with a nickname like Lovey, given to me by my mother. I had been fighting since I was old enough to ride a bike. Fighting skills and my charming smile also made me popular with the ladies. I really liked basketball, but I just couldn't stick to anything that wasn't making me any money. Besides, you had to go to school to play ball, and I had been kicked out so many times, I just decided to go to community college and get my GED. So when I entered the dope game, I was what most people consider as known. Looking back, I understand that I always had the potential to be a leader. It was nothing for me to organize a group of people to go do some dirt. Even if I set out to do something on my own, people would form an alliance to go with me without me even asking. I was so smooth that I traveled from hood to hood, even the ones that my neighborhood had beef with. I would date their girls, set up shop, and even play ball on their courts. The hood loved me, and I loved them back. I was like the Black Robin Hood. It was nothing for me to stick up a track house and blow all the money on all the neighborhood kids. I love the excitement of selling drugs, but I think I love the feeling of giving to others even more, which is why I kept doing it. But as much as I loved it, as much love as I had, I could also be just as ruthless. By the time I was 17, I was hanging out with dudes in their 30s and 40s. There wasn't a day that I didn't have at least $1,000 in my pocket. I would spend $100 on the ice cream truck for the neighborhood kids. They looked up to me, and I loved that feeling. They would catch me on the court and ask me to wear my chain or watch. Lots of times, I would just give it to them. I had the money to buy another one later. It was also when I turned 17 that life got more violent. I would run up in houses of known drug dealers and make them get down or lay down. One particular night, 2 other guys and I decided to run in on this cat we knew. I would later realize that was the greatest mistake of my life. At about 9:30 p.m. one summer night, it was all planned out to rob this dude who had beef with my homie. Without going into detail, there were some words that were exchanged that made things get real bad. My homeboy was more upset than I was, more upset than I had ever seen him, which made us more upset. Without saying a word, it was decided to off him. We had to, or he was going to come for us and our families. As we tied him up and poured gasoline over him, he said these words calmly, and I will never forget them. I'm not even going to call the police on y'all. What's coming to y'all is way worse than what any prison can do to you. Even now, it sends chills up my spine. I lit the match and we fled the scene. That night, I had trouble sleeping, not because of what I had done, but because of the words he had said. I was usually known for giving dudes a second chance. I was usually the one to show mercy, but he had threatened my mom and pops, and it wasn't going to go down like that. I had to take his life. When I woke up the next morning, I just knew that it would be all over the news and that the cops would be looking for us. But to my surprise, no news and no cops. I lay low for about a week. I imagined someone would go visit him and find his body. My accomplices had seen each other, but hadn't spoken a word about the incident. So you could imagine to my surprise when the youngest of us ran into my backyard where we were, checked to see if the coast was clear, and said in a low, shaky voice, "Ayo, love, we seen him." We both knew who he was talking about without him saying a name, but we were in disbelief. "That can't be," said the oldest. "We saw him burning." "Man, I'm telling you, I seen him walking in the store. I sent my man in there to be sure. He dapped him up and everything. So I sent his shorty last night to his house, and she said the floor was burned in his bedroom. When she asked what happened, he said he fell asleep with the blunt in his hand and the house caught fire. He ain't snitching, but we better watch him." Weeks turned into months. It seemed we had gotten away with attempted murder. Our confidence was greater and our hearts were colder. 3 years later, I was 20 and had committed enough crimes to have forgotten about the night, or at least not to worry about it. My latest escapade had landed me a kidnapping, aggravated assault, and a rape charge. It's crazy. Out of all the crimes that I had really committed and got away with, I was being charged for a crime that not only did I not commit, but I wasn't even there. I figured that I was just getting back all the wrong I had done in my life. But it hurt me the most to have been accused of raping a woman. I love my mother. Only crazy men who didn't love their mothers would do something like that. I could never harm a woman, let alone rape her. When the police came to the door for me, my mother was not surprised. She always said that the life I was living would catch up to me. But when they read the charges, she screamed and cursed. "There's no way in hell my son raped anybody. Nobody. Now, he done a lot of stuff, but he ain't no rapist." She then proceeded to cry out all the other things I had done. I was afraid that they would add more charges based on what she was saying. Thank God they didn't. That's one thing about my mama. She was one tough cookie. She gave me tough love, but she knew her son, and she fought for me when she knew I was right. My picture had been all over the 6 o'clock news, all over the paper. I was so embarrassed. I stopped going to community college, and I was fired from my job. It's amazing. I was one of the biggest dope boys and stick-up kids, but I always held a steady job and was in school for business administration, but I couldn't face my classmates. I could hear them whispering on campus. Pause. My hood knew me and trusted me. They knew there was no way I had done a thing like that. I was a people's vote for mayor. When the case went to trial, the lady involved in the incident quickly cleared my name by saying that although she had gotten in the car with us and I had driven them to their destination, I had nothing to do with it as I had left immediately after dropping them off. She even spoke of my character as to how I had asked her if she needed anything and told the other gentleman not to curse around her. She wanted us to say that I told the other guys to treat her right and that she was a keeper. She really believed that I had no idea that the people at the house that I dropped her off to would rape her. And she was right, or I would never have driven her. She made it very clear that even though the description of the vehicle and the driver was correct, it was completely false that I had anything to do with the sexual assault or rape. She pleaded for my freedom. Thank God, I sighed in relief. I just knew things were going to be okay and that they would clear my name. I thanked the lady who apparently knew my name and knew my characters well. She said she couldn't let me take the fall for something I had no part of. Although she was apologetic, the media was not. After having a mugshot on the news and headlining the newspaper, not one word was written to rescind or say that I was proven innocent. I had already lost my job, and no one put anything in writing that said I didn't do it. They just erased it off of my record as easily as they had placed it there. But the damage was already done. My self-esteem was crushed. I got another job, but I never went back to school. That same year, my life took another turn for the worse. We were at the trap house, and the cops had been on us heavy lately. So instead of carrying the guns on us, we had them hid close by around the house. You know, some near the court, the store, the places we walked to frequently. This particular day, the youngest of our crew took a walk outside only to be met with a drive-by. We ran down the stairs of the apartments only to see him gasping for air while holding his chest. We scrambled to the bushes, but it was too late. We immediately thought about the man we set on fire, but we found out that the shooting was unrelated. He was only 18, and now he was paralyzed from the waist down. I went to sleep that night with the words of the man we set on fire playing over and over and over in my mind. I had seen him a couple of times after the incident, and he never looked upset. He seemed to be at peace with his words he had spoken over us. He would just nod and keep it moving. 2 years later, I was 22 when the older of us was shot in the same exact spot, paralyzed the same way, because of some other beef unrelated to the man that we set on fire. I began to become paranoid. The only good thing that had happened to me was my son was born. He was the love of my life. His mother and I lived together, but it had turned rocky. I didn't really trust her. I don't know if it's because I was paranoid or if I really had a reason to be. There was a time in my life that I loved her more than anything. I thought she was the one, but now it just seemed like I love her for giving birth to my son. I had a construction job and I loved that. I was still slinging, so my money was good. I would get off work every day and take my son to get a new outfit. He never wore the same thing twice. His mother never washed clothes anyway. I got him a fish tank, a puppy, and a pet iguana. He was only 2. I would take him to the mall, parks, and he would show everyone his pets. He was the cutest, smartest little boy in the world. 2 years later, I was 25, and his mother gave birth to my daughter. I had my doubts, but that she was mine. By this time, I had evidence that she had been cheating, which gave me the green light to cheat too. But we still lived together. Besides, she was the mother of my amazing children, which was more than enough reasons to stay. Now, I worked every day to come home to the 2 loves of my life. I was pretty much their primary caregiver. As soon as I got home, she handed them off to me and she partied all weekend. I didn't mind because my kids were the best part of my life. I was working on falling in love with their mom, but the word on the street was that she was sleeping with my homeboys. I was more pissed at her than I was with them. In hindsight, I should have been upset with them. She denied it to the end, but things just weren't the same. Besides, by now, I was cheating on her too. I was quite the ladies' man, and I didn't see any reason to be faithful to someone who wasn't going to return the favor. June was the summer that changed my life. By now, we were all sleeping with each other's girls. We probably coined the term bros before hoes. We figured we were getting money, and that was enough to be happy about. There was no need to be angry over these gold-digging females. Well, this one cat in particular was an associate. I had slept with his girl, and I'm pretty sure he had slept with mine. And we both knew it. There was no love lost and certainly no beef. When the word on the street was that there was some hate in his blood concerning the money I was getting, and the gas to the fire was that his girl was comparing him to me. We got into what one would call a dick slinging contest on the court, but to me, it was all in fun. Little did I know he was serious. The next day, I walked out of my baby mama's apartment to take the trash out. I had moved out. I was met by an old dude who wanted to finish where we had left out on the court the day before. I grinned at him and said, "Man, you can't be serious," and continued walking. If I had known how sincere he was, I would have stopped walking to the garbage, and walked back into the apartment to get my gun. When I turned from tossing the trash, there was a gun aimed point blank at my chest. I stood there staring at him. thinking this dude is not going to shoot me. So help me God, if he does, he won't live to talk about it. Get on your knees, he said. Man, do you know who I am? This is Lovey you talking to. You can't kill me. You walk these streets, but I am these streets. I yelled at him as I felt the tension rising. I could see he was scared. My mama always said, be scared of a person who is afraid of you. By this time, people were outside. There was no way I was getting on my knees. And just like that, bang, he shot me in my chest. It was like I had been plugged in and someone had pulled the plug. I felt my legs fall beneath me and I hit the ground. I instantly began to think about the two that were shot before me. I knew what was happening as I gasped for air. His girlfriend, whom I had slept with, ran to my side before my own baby mama, and a man I had seen around called the ambulance. The whole world was a blur to me. I just kept praying inside. God, don't let me die. I got to take care of my kids. My mama needs me. All these thoughts ran through my head. I heard the police ask who did it. My baby mother said nothing, even though everyone knew. I wouldn't say either. I was going to kill him myself. But his girlfriend spoke up. My boyfriend did it. He lives at, and she gave the address. Now I live by the code, and snitch is never an option. But that just let me know that my baby mama held more allegiance to him than she did to me. And his girl cared more about me than she did him. I had my answer about where she stood, and I would never love her again. They rushed me to the hospital to save my life. I felt them tearing off my clothes, but it didn't seem real. This big, older black lady in the emergency room with blonde hair. She was trying to stuff a tube down my throat, and I didn't want her to. She stuck her hands and pried my mouth open. Baby, I'm trying to save your life. I'm not going to let you die on my clock. She said as she put the tube down my throat, and I coughed. It's okay, she said. It's going to help you. You're going to live, she said over and over again, and I believed her. I was mad at her because it hurt, but I believed her. They performed emergency surgery to remove the bullet from my spine. It's amazing that something so small can cause so much damage. It went in my chest, under my heart, and severed my spine just half an inch higher, and it would have hit my heart. When I came out of recovery, my mother was there. I could tell she had been crying only because of her eyes. She was too tough to let anyone see her crying. The doctor came in and said, Mr. Silver, you're lucky to be alive. But the bad news is you're never going to walk again. I looked away from him towards my mother. In true Janet Silver form, she cursed. You got to be the dumbest MFer in the whole world. I told you to stay out those projects. My dad just shook his head in disbelief. I was so hurt by the news, but most of all, I had let my folks down. They had been nothing but the best to me. My father had bought me 3 cars all before I was 17. My mother cooked and kept house and bought me anything I wanted. We vacationed in the Caribbean and frequented the airways, visiting family. I was not supposed to end up here. My kids, I thought. My son is only 2. Who's going to teach him to play basketball? Who's going to take care of my daughter? A tear came to my eye. I was only 25 years old. I was hooked up to all sorts of machines in the hospital. I had never been a big guy. I was tall and lanky. Most people said I had the stature of Snoop Dogg, but the face of Tupac. Because of my weight or lack of it, pressure sores began to form on my bottom from being in the bed for so long. I was in a state of depression, and to make matters worse, my boys were coming to the hospital to tell me that my baby mama had dudes in my house around my kids, wearing my clothes, driving my cars, and spending my money. They asked me what I wanted them to do. Nothing, I said to them. I'll handle it myself. I still hadn't come to grips with the fact that I was unable to get out of bed and participate in revenge. After a month, I put the word out to handle my business, but to leave my family in harm, even my trifling baby mama. Once she ran through all of my savings, she gave my kids to her sister. She signed over her parental rights. My name wasn't on the birth certificate because I had doubts since I knew she was cheating. So I had my mother go to court on my behalf. The judge ordered paternity tests in order to grant partial custody. They came back 99.9 not mine. I was crushed, but it all makes sense to me now. No wonder their mother held no loyalty to me. I love those kids, but I was not going to take care of another man's kids. Hell, I couldn't now even if I wanted to. Maybe it's better this way. They deserve a dad that could take care of them. I spent a year in the hospital, 3 years in an assisted living facility, and 5 years back at home with my parents. During that time, I was back and forth in the hospital for pressure sores and all sorts of infections. I hadn't lost my good name or my charm. The nurses loved me everywhere I went and catered to me. Subsequently, I had dated all of my home health nurses. I prayed to God that I could still have sex, and He answered, and I was more than grateful. I was now on disability. Thank God my father had always made sure that I kept a job. I remember I would be hanging out on the block, and my father would pull up with my uniform in his hand and make me change right there and send me on my way to work. I love him for that. Not only did he give me a work ethic, now it guaranteed my social security benefits. But $900 a month was nothing compared to what I was used to having. So I went back to the streets. I'm going to end there for today. I hope you guys come to check in when we do our next chapter, and see you soon.